perpetuated the perversion of good. Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Shadow, and today we are talking about cryptids. One cryptid in specific though, one that most people, whether you're spiritual or not, are probably familiar with, are fleshy boys, are flesh pedestrians, also known as... I will be putting the name on the screen and not saying it, because if you have not learned this already on my channel, you must be new. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. But we do not say names of creatures here. Why? Because names hold power. And when you say something's name, you are calling out to it and therefore sometimes summoning it. And I'd rather not have a run-in with one of these fleshy boys. Not my favorite thing, not my idea of a good time. That said, let's get on into the video. So, our fleshy boys actually originated in Native American folklore, which is not uncommon. It's something you see a lot, especially with cryptids. It's often adapted from indigenous or First Nations, Native American, whichever term is most relevant or most used in your area. Different communities prefer different terms. Whatever is least offensive to you, please and thank you. In Canada, I know it's changed every year. But anyway, they have been, these entities and these descriptions have been pulled from Native American texts. The Navajo specifically is where the idea of the flesh pedestrian originally came from. And there's obviously different backstories depending on which culture you go to, which happens with anything. Anywhere you go, each culture has a slightly different variation of what it is, how it came to be, things like that. But we're gonna talk about the most common one and the Navajo one, because that is the earliest recorded talking or speakings or scriptures or whatever, cave paintings, whatever, of this creature. The earliest recorded tellings of the flesh pedestrian. Now, this flesh pedestrian is a shapeshifter, and they are believed to be witches who have sold their souls to the devil. This did not help the whole satanic panic in the late 1900s, but obviously this has been around for a while. This was around pre-colonization and so on and so forth. But there's different ways that one would become initiated or would go about selling one's soul to become a flesh pedestrian, but essentially once they have become one, they have the ability to shapeshift into anything that they want. They just don't quite get it right, and they start losing more and more of their humanity the longer that they have been a flesh pedestrian, and they kind of lose themselves to that dark pull of whatever it is because of what they've done. One more explicit description of exactly how one becomes a flesh pedestrian, and again, don't do this at home. I don't know why I should have to put an advisor or a claim on these, but don't try this at home. Don't try to become a flesh pedestrian. Don't do it. It's bad. You're gonna end up in jail. Don't do it, okay? You've been told now. Going back to it, one of the most common ways is you had to be initiated into the witchery way as it was described. That's what the translation is. I'm not even going to attempt saying the original Navajo because I don't want to butcher it and offend anybody. The Navajo believed that how they became initiated into the witchery way was by killing, murdering a close relative, typically a sibling, along with other crimes including grave robbing and necrophilia. Once they've become initiated, they were deemed as pure evil, and again, that devolving into a more primal, malevolent entity the longer they exist in that state. There is, as I said, some different cultural interpretations of this, but very, very few in terms of the flesh pedestrian. There is the Navajo name for it, which when it translated means to go on all fours. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, so again, I'm not going to. I will put it up on the screen here somewhere. But they are witches, not medicine women. I want to make that distinction. They're not the same. They were viewed as different. Witches were viewed as evil. They performed harmful ceremonies, manipulative magic. They perpetuated the perversion of good. They weren't very well looked upon by indigenous culture, which kind of was synonymous with how the Western culture viewed witchcraft. The main reason, though, going back to the fact that there's less talk of it in other cultures, is it was primarily brought forth by the Navajo, and there's not a lot of cultural context that's applied to these stories, and the Navajo are very reluctant to share that necessary cultural context, which is understandable, not wanting to share it with outsiders. You'll have noticed that the interest and the sightings and whatnot of flesh pedestrians has increased. This is partially due to the spread in the media and things like TikTok. You want to see a video, it goes viral, and then all of a sudden they're popping up everywhere. And some of them are hoax, some of them are real, some of them are questionable. But it's definitely a creature that I don't want to run into in the daylight or in the dark. The traditional animal associated with flesh pedestrians are coyotes because they're seen as tricksters in many First Nations lore. However, in traditional Navajo lore, it's also said that the flesh pedestrian will also possess living animals and people. That's something that kind of got lost in translation, whether they shapeshift into them or they can fully possess a new body if theirs is deteriorating. It's also interesting to note that European stories versus Navajo stories about the flesh pedestrian and how exchanges with them go are very, very different. Typically, if you see a non-Navajo person telling a story about a Skinwalker, about a flesh pedestrian, it's because I'm reading it, a flesh pedestrian, it's because, I've just lost my train of thought because I did that. I can't believe I did that. I know some of you think that's not a big deal, and I mean, I don't live in an area that's primarily their target, and I live on the second floor of an apartment building, but that's still, I'm still going to be restless sleeping for the next couple of days. It's very powerful using words, but these entities in traditional Navajo, there's usually no victory for the individual. It's usually a victory for the flesh pedestrian. Whereas in European ones and just general non-Navajo stories, the individual tends to see the flesh pedestrian and then manages to escape from the flesh pedestrian. Which is something that leads a lot of people to believe that those are these things. I'm going to put it over here. These things and not fleshy boys. But that's neither here nor there. So yeah, to kind of cap everything off, roundabout, come back to what the general gist of it is. They're an old legend that comes from Navajo indigenous culture. It is a witch that has committed some sort of horrible acts or sold their soul to the devil in order to gain the ability to shapeshift into whatever creature they want. They have a hunger for human flesh and flesh in general. And in traditional lore, people don't tend to fare so well and be so lucky as they do nowadays. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. I will definitely get back to you on those. If there's a lot of them, I will make a part 2. If you have any questions about other cryptids, if there's one that I should do next, definitely let me know in the comments below. I'm planning on making a series on these. And without further ado, while you're down there, make sure you hit that, thumbs up. And tap that subscribe button if you haven't already. And I will see you guys in the next video. Alright, bye-bye now.